The Xylosian Concorde had watched humanity for 300 cycles. They saw the wars, the pollution, the frantic scrambling of a species that seemed to always be angry or afraid or both. The Xylosians were old. They were calm. They were made of silicon and slow thoughts, and they decided that humans needed help. So they came down to Earth. Not in warships, but in smooth white orbs that hummed a peaceful note. They spoke to the leaders of every human nation at once. Their voice was soft and flat, like a stone skipping across still water. "You are dangerous to yourselves," the lead Xylosian, a being called Quiet Stone, said. "Your emotions burn too hot. Your weapons crack your own world. And if you meet other species, you might kill them by accident. Your germs, your fire, your fear. We offer rules. Rules to keep you safe." The humans listened. They were tired. They had fought each other for thousands of years, and here was an alien race offering order. The rules were simple. No human warships beyond the moon. No human weapons that could reach a planet's surface from orbit. No human travel to alien worlds without a Xylosian observer. And all alien visitors to human space must be escorted at all times. The humans signed the Universal Safeguard Protocols. They did not cheer. They did not cry. They just nodded, because what else could they do? The Xylosians had faster ships and older minds. The humans felt small. For 10 years, the system worked. Alien traders came to Earth's orbit, but they never landed without a Xylosian handler. Human scientists went to study Xylosian libraries, but they never touched anything without permission. The Xylosians patted themselves on their smooth backs. They had tamed the wild animal. But the humans were not tamed. They were watching. They were learning. The first sign of trouble came from a human engineer named Myra Chen. She worked on a mining station near Jupiter. The Xylosian rules said she could not build a warship. But the rules said nothing about a mining laser that could cut an asteroid into pieces from 50,000 kilometers away. She built 4 of them. "They are for rocks," she told the Xylosian observer. The observer looked at the lasers. They were powerful enough to cut a small moon in half. But the rules did not forbid mining equipment. So the observer said nothing. Other humans followed Myra's example. They built cargo ships with thick armor. The rules said nothing about armor. They built automated drones that could fly in tight formation. The rules said nothing about formations. They built communication towers that could reach across solar systems in real time. The rules said nothing about talking. The Xylosians noticed. But they did not worry. They were old and wise. They had seen 100 young species try to bend rules. It never mattered in the end. Rules were rules. And the Xylosians wrote the rules. Meanwhile, humanity smiled and waited. They did not break a single rule. Not one. They followed every word of the protocols exactly as written. They invited Xylosian observers to every meeting. They showed every new ship design for approval. They were perfect guests. But behind the smiles, something was building. The humans had learned something important in the 10 years under Xylosian care. They learned that the aliens were not watching closely. The aliens assumed humans were simple. The aliens thought emotions made humans stupid. The humans let them think that. One night on the mining station, Myra Chen stood by a window and looked out at the stars. A young worker named Leo came up beside her. "Do you think they know?" Leo asked. "Know what?" Myra said. "Know that we are not following the rules the way they wanted. Know that we are building things they never imagined." Myra smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a person who had solved a puzzle that everyone else thought was impossible. "Leo," she said, "the rules keep us from hurting ourselves. They keep us from running into a fight we cannot win. They keep us from touching things that might kill us. That is what the Xylosians think. That is why they wrote the rules." She turned away from the window and looked at Leo. Her eyes were dark and calm. "But the rules do not keep us from getting ready. And we have been getting ready for 10 years. When the time comes, we will not break the rules. We will just show them that the rules were never the cage they thought they were." Leo swallowed. He looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, the Xylosians were sleeping peacefully in their slow, quiet minds. They did not know that the star they had caged was about to go supernova. And the explosion would not come from space. It would come from the quiet humans following every rule to the letter, waiting for the day the rules no longer mattered. The Creel did not believe in softness. They were 6 feet of chitin and claws, with 4 arms and a mouth that never stopped moving. They ate their own weak. They conquered their neighbors. And when they looked at humans, they saw meat wrapped in worry. The human medical outpost on Borin's moon was small. 50 doctors, 30 nurses, and a handful of guards with stun guns. They treated sick aliens from a dozen species. They asked for nothing in return. The Creel saw this and laughed. They offer medicine for free, said Creel Commander Vix. They are prey pretending to be helpful. So the Creel attacked. 3 warships dropped from faster-than-light right on top of the outpost. They did not send a message. They did not ask for surrender. They just fired. The outpost burned in 90 seconds. 212 humans died. Another 40 were taken as slaves. The Creel broadcast the whole thing on open channels. They wanted everyone to see. They wanted the soft humans to cry. On Earth, the news hit like a fist. People screamed in the streets. Leaders called for war. But the Xylosian Concord stepped in quickly. You cannot attack, said Quiet Stone, the same Xylosian who had brought the rules 10 years before. The protocols forbid warships. They forbid preemptive strikes. You must file a complaint. You must wait for investigation. You must be calm. The human leaders stared at him. Their faces were red. Their hands were shaking. 212 dead, said General Marcus Holt. And you want us to file a complaint? The rules are the rules, said Quiet Stone. They keep you safe from your own anger. General Holt looked at the Xylosian for a long time. Then he looked down at his desk. He took a slow breath. When he looked up again, his face was calm. Too calm. Fine, he said. We will follow the rules. Quiet Stone nodded, satisfied. He did not see the general's fingers tapping a quiet code on the side of the desk. He did not know that code meant one thing, loophole. 3 days later, a human engineer named Myra Chen arrived at a small space station near the asteroid belt. She brought with her a fleet of ice haulers. These were ugly ships, fat and slow, built to carry frozen water from Saturn's rings to Mars colonies. They had no weapons. They had no armor. They had no military tags at all. But they had thick engines. And they had reinforced hulls for pushing through ice fields. And they had point-to-point navigation computers that could fly a ship through a keyhole. Myra gathered her crew. 50 men and women, all engineers, all miners, all people who had spent years working in the black. The rules say we cannot build warships, she said. But they say nothing about salvage rights. They say nothing about mining vessels. They say nothing about cargo tugs. She pointed at the ice haulers on her screen. These are not warships. These are rock movers. And we are going to move a rock. The rock was in the asteroid belt. It was the size of a city block. It was dark, ugly, and full of iron. The Creel flagship, a massive beast called the Asterisk Queen's Fury Asterisk, was parked near Borin's moon, waiting for reinforcements. The Creel were not worried. Humans had no warships. What could they do? Myra's fleet moved slowly. They looked like debris. They acted like debris. They sent no signals. They made no threats. They just drifted. The Creel sensors picked them up. But the sensors saw mining ships and rocks. Nothing dangerous. Commander Vix laughed. Look, he said to his crew. The soft ones come to beg for their slaves back. He did not see the ice haulers change course. He did not see them line up in perfect formation. He did not see them lock their navigation computers to a single point in space. Myra counted down on her private channel. 3, 2, 1. Fire. The ice haulers did not shoot lasers. They did not launch missiles. They simply pushed. Their engines burned white hot, and they pushed the cityblock-sized rock faster and faster and faster. The rock became a bullet. The bullet became a scream. The Creel saw it at the last second. Commander Vix opened his mouth to shout. But sound does not travel in space. The rock hit the Asterisk Queen's Fury Asterisk exactly in the middle. The flagship did not explode. It cracked. Like an egg under a hammer. The two halves tumbled away, spitting fire and Creel bodies and broken machines. The other 2 Creel warships ran. They did not wait to fight rocks that moved like bullets. An hour later, a Xylosian envoy arrived at Myra's station. His name was Stillwater. He was angry, which was rare for a Xylosian. You violated the spirit of the rules, Stillwater said. The protocols were meant to prevent violence. You used mining ships as weapons. You used a rock as a missile. This is not allowed in the spirit of the agreement. Myra Chen stood in front of him. She was covered in grease and sweat. She had not slept in 2 days. Read them again, she said. Her voice was quiet. Spirit isn't in the text. Stillwater opened his mouth. Then he closed it. He had no answer. Because she was right. The rules said nothing about rocks. The rules said nothing about ice haulers. The rules said nothing about salvage rights. The humans had followed every word. And 212 dead humans had just been answered. Myra turned away from the Xylosian and walked back to her ship. She did not smile. There was nothing to smile about. But she walked taller than she had in 10 years. The cage was getting bigger. The Veth were the oldest species in the galaxy. They were not strong. Their bodies were thin and pale, with long fingers and large eyes that saw in 10 colors. They could not lift heavy things. They could not run fast. But their minds were sharp as broken glass. They built machines that the Xylosians could not understand. They wrote mathematics that made other species cry. For 300 years, the Veth had watched the Xylosian Concord make rules for younger races. They had never spoken against it. The rules were fine. The rules kept peace. The rules made the galaxy quiet and safe. But after the Creel attack and the human response with the rock and the ice haulers, the Veth began to watch more closely. They sent a diplomat named Serek to observe the humans. Serek was old and patient. He had seen empires rise and fall. He thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The humans did not bomb the Creel homeworld. The Xylosians expected them to try. They had prepared speeches about patience and law. But the humans did not even ask for permission to attack. Instead, they asked for permission to trade. Serek found this strange. So he followed a human named Leo, the same young worker who had spoken to Myra Chen on the mining station 3 years ago. Leo was not a soldier. He was not a general. He was a shipping coordinator. "What are you doing?" Serek asked him one day. Leo was sitting at a screen covered in numbers. The numbers moved fast. Leo moved faster. "I am buying Creel debt," Leo said. "Their whole economy runs on borrowed minerals. They promised to deliver asteroid ore to the Xylosian banks. But they have been late on payments for 2 years. Their interest rates are very high now." Serek tilted his head. "Why does that matter?" Leo smiled. It was a small smile. A quiet one. "Because I am buying their debt from the banks. For every piece of Creel debt I buy, I get the right to claim their ore shipments. And if they cannot deliver the ore, I get the right to take their ships instead." Serek felt something cold run down his long spine. "That is not war. That is accounting." "Same thing," Leo said. "Just slower." 3 months later, the Creel found themselves in a trap. They could not deliver their ore because human ships kept buying the ore before it left the ground. They could not pay their debts because they had no money. And they could not fight because every time they moved a warship, a human lawyer filed a complaint with the Xylosian courts. The complaints were always legal, always correct, always followed every rule. The Creel commander, a new leader named Vix II, the first Vix had died on the cracked flagship, tried to fight back. He launched asteroids at a human mining station. But the humans had already turned the Creel's own asteroid defenses against them. How? They had bought the company that programmed the defenses. The asteroids went nowhere. They just floated in space, useless. Vix II screamed at his advisors. "This is not war. This is a game." One of his advisors, a young Creel named Tech, shook his head. "It is war. They are just playing it better." Then came the humanitarian escorts. The humans offered to protect Creel defectors. Any Creel who wanted to leave the homeworld could board a human ship and be taken to safety. The humans called it mercy. The Creel called it betrayal. Because every Creel who left was one less worker, one less soldier, one less mind to help the war. And the humans treated the defectors well. They gave them food. They gave them beds. They gave them small rooms with windows. The defectors told other Creel about it. Soon, more Creel wanted to leave. The homeworld started to empty. Serek watched all of this from a small office on a human station. He took notes. He ran calculations. And slowly, he began to understand something terrible. The Xylosian protocols were not written to stop human cruelty. Humans had shown very little cruelty. They had not tortured prisoners. They had not bombed cities. They had not used poison gas. The humans were almost gentle in their war. No, the protocols were written to stop human creativity. Because humans did not just want to win. They wanted to win in interesting ways. Serek remembered the old Xylosian files from First Contact. The Xylosians had watched human history. They had seen the weapons humans made, guns that fired around corners, bombs that hid in toys, ships that sank other ships by pretending to be friendly. The Xylosians had been terrified. Not of human strength, of human imagination. So they made rules to limit that imagination. No warships. No preemptive strikes. No weapons of mass destruction. They thought the rules would make humans boring. Instead, the rules made humans clever. One evening, Sarek sat across from Quiet Stone, the Xylosian leader. The two old beings watched a screen showing Creel space. The human fleet was not attacking. They were just sitting there, waiting. Every day, more Creel defectors left the homeworld. Every day, the Creel economy shrank. Every day, the Creel leaders grew more desperate. They are going to win, Sarek said. And they have not broken a single rule. Quiet Stone nodded slowly. They are following the spirit of the law. No, Sarek said. His voice was barely a whisper. They are following the letter of the law. And that is worse. Because the spirit of the law was supposed to bore them. But they are not bored. They are having fun. Quiet Stone looked confused. Fun? This is war. Sarek leaned close. His large eyes reflected the screen. That is what I mean. They do not see this as war. They see it as a puzzle. A game. A challenge. Every rule we give them, they turn into a new way to win. They are not following the rules because they are weak. They are following the rules because it is fun to break things without touching them. Quiet Stone was silent for a long time. Then he said, "What do we do?" Sarek looked at the screen again. The human ships had started to move. Not to attack. Just to drift. To wait. To enjoy the slow death of an empire that had made the mistake of hurting them. Nothing, Sarek said. We can do nothing. Because we wrote the rules. And now the humans are better at using them than we are. Outside the window, a human cargo ship passed by. It was not a warship. It was just a truck. But on its side, someone had painted a small picture, a rock, an ice hauler, and a broken insect. The humans were not angry. They were not cruel. They were just playing. And the galaxy had never seen a player like them before. The Creel were losing. They had lost 3 fleets. They had lost half their colonies. They had lost most of their money to human lawyers and human accountants. Commander Vix-2 had nothing left except anger and fear. So he did something stupid. There was a neutral station called Wayfarer's Rest. It was not human. It was not Creel. It belonged to the Veth, who let anyone come and trade and rest. Humans went there. Aliens went there. Families went there. It was a place of peace. Vix-2 sent a small ship to Wayfarer's Rest. The ship carried no weapons. It carried no soldiers. It carried a glass bottle filled with green gas. The gas was a Creel bioweapon. It ate lungs from the inside. It killed slowly. It killed everyone. The ship parked at the station. A Creel agent broke the bottle in the main market. Then he ran. Within 1 hour, 400 beings were dead. 230 of them were human. The rest were Veth, Xylosian, and a dozen other species. Children died. Old people died. A human mother died holding her baby. The baby died too. The news reached Earth in minutes. The human leaders did not scream this time. They did not cry. They sat in silence. Then General Marcus Holt, now old and gray, stood up. "Call the Xylosians," he said. "Tell them we want a meeting." The Xylosian Council met on their homeworld. They moved slowly. They always moved slowly. They talked about the bioweapon. They talked about rules. They talked about investigations. They talked for 6 cycles. 6 days of slow words and slow decisions. On the 7th day, they still had not decided anything. On the 7th day, humanity stopped waiting. General Holt appeared on every screen in the galaxy. He stood behind a podium. His face was hard. His eyes were tired. "The universal safeguard protocols were made to keep humans safe," he said. "They have failed. The Creel killed our people on a neutral station. They used a weapon the rules were supposed to stop. The Xylosian Council has done nothing for 6 days. So we are doing something now." He held up a piece of paper. It was the protocols. The same document humans had signed 20 years ago. "We are announcing a unilateral safety review of this agreement. That means we are looking at every rule to see if it still works. And we have decided. The rules do not work anymore." He put the paper down. He looked directly into the camera. "The rules are gone. On Earth, people held their breath. On 100 human colonies, people held their breath. On the Xylosian homeworld, Quiet Stone opened his mouth to speak. But no words came out. Because the humans had already moved. Within 72 standard hours, the human fleet appeared over the Creel homeworld. Where did they get a fleet? They had built it over 20 years. Under salvage rights. Under mining vessels. Under deep space construction. Every loophole, every trick, every hidden law. They had used them all. The fleet was not pretty. It was made of ice haulers with guns bolted on. Cargo ships with armor plates welded to the sides. mining drones with targeting computers. It looked ugly. It looked wrong. It looked like something a child would build with old boxes and tape. But it worked. The ships moved in perfect formation. They did not bomb cities. They did not kill civilians. That was not the human way. Not yet. Instead, they fired at specific targets. Military bases, weapons factories, command centers, leader bunkers. Every place that made the Creel war machine run. They hit each target with one shot. One perfect shot. The Creel tried to fight back, but their weapons had been bought by human companies. Their soldiers had defected to human ships. Their leaders had no bunkers left. In 4 hours, the Creel military stopped existing. Commander Vix-2 sat in his last bunker. The walls were shaking. The lights were flickering. He looked at his screen and saw human ships everywhere. "We surrender," he whispered. "Tell them we surrender." But the humans did not answer. They were busy broadcasting a message on every frequency. The message went to the Creel, to the Xylosians, to the Veth, to every species in the galaxy. "We followed your rules for 20 years. We did not break a single one. Now the rules are gone. We could burn your world. We could kill every Creel from orbit. We have the ships. We have the weapons. We have the reason." The message paused. Then the voice continued. It was General Holt, but his voice was quiet now. Almost gentle. "We are not doing that, because we are still polite. But remember this. The only thing keeping you safe right now is our politeness. Do not make us forget it." The broadcast ended. The human ships stayed in orbit for 3 more days. They did nothing. They just waited. Watched. Reminded. Then they left. On the Xylosian homeworld, Quiet Stone sat alone in his chamber. He played the human message again and again. He had made the rules to protect the galaxy from human rage. But the humans had not used rage. They had used patience. They had used law. They had used 20 years of waiting. And now the rules were gone. The cage was open. And the star that had been trapped inside was not angry. It was just free. Quiet Stone looked at his own hands. They were old. They were slow. They had made a terrible mistake. He had thought humans needed protection from themselves. He was wrong. The galaxy needed protection from humans who followed the rules. And now there were no rules at all. The war was over. The Creel homeworld still turned. The humans had not burned it. They had not poisoned it. They had simply taken everything that made it dangerous and left the rest. The Creel were alive. They were just not a threat anymore. The Xylosian Concord waited 1 month. Then 2 months. Then 3. They held meetings. They wrote speeches. They prepared a new treaty, longer than the old one, with more rules and more pages and more small print. They thought the humans would be happy. They thought the humans would sign. They were wrong. General Marcus Holt met the Xylosian envoy on a small human station. There were no cameras. No crowds. Just 2 old beings at a table. The Xylosian was called Stillwater. He looked nervous. Xylosians did not get nervous. But Stillwater was nervous. "We have a new treaty," Stillwater said. He pushed a thick book across the table. It had 500 pages. "It will keep everyone safe. It has better rules. Stronger rules. Rules that cannot be bent." General Holt did not open the book. He did not even look at it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a single piece of paper. It was folded in half. He put it on the table. "This is our treaty," he said. Stillwater picked up the paper. He read it. Then he read it again. His mouth opened. His mouth closed. The paper had only 1 sentence. "Do not harm humans, human allies, or human interests." That's it. Stillwater looked up. "That is not a treaty. That is a threat." General Holt shook his head. "It is not a threat. It is a promise. We will not hurt you if you do not hurt us. We do not need 500 pages to say that." "But what about trade? What about borders? What about accidents? What about them?" Holt said. His voice was calm. "If something goes wrong, we will talk. If someone gets hurt, we will fix it. If someone tries to hurt us on purpose, we will end them. We do not need rules for that. We just need this 1 page." Stillwater sat back. He looked at the paper again. Then he looked at Holt. The human's face was peaceful. Not angry. Not proud. Just peaceful. "You are not afraid," Stillwater said. It was not a question. "No," Holt said. "We are not afraid. We were afraid for 20 years. We followed your rules. We stayed in your cage. And then the Creel killed our people, and your rules did nothing." So we are done being afraid. Now you can be afraid. Or not. It does not matter to us. Stillwater left the station that day. He took the one-page treaty with him. The Xylosian Council argued about it for 6 more months. In the end, they signed it. They had no choice. The humans were not asking. And something strange happened. The galaxy became quiet. Not the quiet of fear. The quiet of respect. The Veth watched the humans carefully. The Xylosians watched them carefully. Even the Creel, broken and beaten, watched them carefully. But they did not watch because they were afraid of human cruelty. Humans had shown no cruelty. They had not tortured. They had not slaughtered. They had not burned worlds. The aliens watched because they were afraid of what humans would invent next if someone made them angry. A human engineer had turned ice haulers into warships. A human shipping clerk had destroyed an empire with debt. A human general had ended a war with 1 page. What would a human child do someday? What would that child build? What would that child think of? No one knew. And that was the scariest part. Far away from the meetings and the treaties, on a small human colony world called New Home, a little girl named Eva sat on a porch. She had paper and crayons. She was drawing. Her mother, a woman named Lena who had once been a nurse on Borin's moon, watched from the doorway. Eva held up her drawing. It showed a human and a Creel sitting at a table. Between them was a plate of food. The human was smiling. The Creel was smiling too. Above them, a yellow sun shone down. "Look, Mama," Eva said. "They are sharing lunch." Lena smiled. But her eyes went to the horizon. There, just above the trees, a small silver dot hung in the sky. It did not move. It did not blink. It just watched. A Xylosian observation drone. They had been watching New Home for 3 months now. Watching and waiting. For what? No one would say. Lena looked back at her daughter. Eva had started a new drawing. This one showed a spaceship with flowers painted on the side. "They are still watching us," Lena whispered. Not to Eva. To herself. The drone did not leave. It stayed there, silent and silver, a tiny eye in the blue sky. Lena smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was a knowing smile. "Good," she whispered. "They are still scared of us being kind enough to wait." Eva looked up. "What did you say, Mamau?" Lena knelt down and hugged her daughter. "Nothing, little one. Just that the galaxy is finally learning who we really are." "Who are we?" Eva asked. Lena thought for a moment. She thought about the rules. The war. The rock that cracked a flagship. The 1-page treaty. She thought about her daughter drawing pictures of peace while a drone watched from above. "We are the ones who follow the rules until the rules break," Lena said. "And then we write new ones. Better ones. Shorter ones." She picked up a crayon and drew a small flower next to Eva's spaceship. "1 page," Lena said. "That is all we need. The rest is just kindness. And kindness, my love, is the most dangerous weapon of all." Eva did not understand. She was 6 years old. But she smiled anyway, because her mother was smiling. And somewhere above them, the Xylosian drone recorded everything. It sent the data back to Quiet Stone, who watched the little girl draw flowers while the galaxy held its breath. The cage was gone. The star was free. And the star was drawing pictures of peace. That was the scariest thing of all.